Or is everybody? I'm not on my microphone. I hope that's still good. Um, I've been having a really wonderful time in Tucson, and this is the beginning of some Sweet Baby Krishna episodes. I think it's important, even though we're reading the Bhagavatam, to dive into Krishna's pastimes. And there's the first way they heard about Krishna's lila in the West was through this one book, Krishna book. So forgive me if you already know this, but some people don't. So I just want to take it back a couple notches. Krishna lila is all the pastimes of Krishna are all found in the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which at the rate we're going with me and Kostuba, it's going to take us a while to get there. That being said, they're all super sweet and wonderful and charming. And unless you make it through 10 cantos, you're not going to get there. And Prabhupada, who did the translation of the Bhagavatam that we study, he thought, well, if I die, I want to make sure they understand who Krishna is. Because if you're just to read Krishna's stories, it's a little peculiar because unlike Ram and unlike Vishnu and unlike various avatars, Krishna does things that are completely what appear adharmic, against Dharma. What does he do? Well, he has a lot of girlfriends. He sneaks away in the middle of the night with girls in the forest. And so he steals, he lies. He does all these things like the Judeo-Christian conception of God doesn't do. And so people have interpreted, people without a bona fide spiritual lineage have read these stories and thought, oh, I guess it's okay to do this. And historically, even in ancient India, you will hear people saying, yes, I am Krishna and you are Gopi, and using it as an excuse for material life. So this unique position of Krishna, which is he's everybody's lover. Everybody's actually Krishna's lover. So in one sense, Krishna, who appears like, well, he's just like a philanderer, he just has lots of girlfriends. He's everybody's original lover. He's allowed to have thousands of girlfriends. Why? Because he's the source of everybody. And everyone is meant to re-fall in love with Krishna. And Krishna is Bhagavan Swayam. He's the original. So when you hear about different manifestations of Vishnu, of God, Krishna is that original fountainhead that all manifestations come from. He is the most confidential part of all Vedic teachings. Now, Vedic teachings are like super vast, and I was speaking with some people today how, how do we do this? Like there's so many interesting things. I was speaking to somebody on a hike today. We went on a really nice hike in the desert. And he said, what do you think about this abundance stuff? Like you pray to God, like that movie, The Secret. Shouldn't God want to give me everything if I just use it in his service? And there are types of like Christianity that believe this. There's types of Vedic rituals that you can pray to Lakshmi or Ganesh for things. And even though that has some type of effect, it doesn't necessarily mean you're God conscious because you get stuff. There's people that have stuff that are very God conscious. And there's people that have there's people that have God but have nothing. So our real desire in bhakti is, God, I have an agenda, but what's your agenda? What's your agenda for me? Here's my agenda. This is the common one. Here's my agenda. Hear me out. You're going to give me a lot of money, and I'm going to use it in service of you. I'm going to have a great house, a great car. I'm going to have tons of abundance because I chanted my abundance mantra this morning. And I'm going to use it all for divine reasons. Guess what? It might not happen. Sometime, and here's the deal. Don't double think God. Don't think that your agenda is bigger than God's agenda for you. I like to think that I got a great plan. But oftentimes, if you look historically in my life, a lot of my worst decisions ever were made exclusively by me. So it's not like my agenda is always right on anyway. we accept in bhakti that Krishna has a plan for us. That doesn't mean we should be negligent with our finances, and it doesn't mean we should be uh, not try. We should try. That being said, we act as if we are in control, but ultimately we understand Bhagavan or Krishna is in control. So Prabhupada fearing, like, you know what, I might die. I want to, if people just read the translation of the Bhagavatam, they can get very easily misled. And also, if they don't have the purports of previous masters, it's going to sort of read like just, here is naughty Krishna. So what he did was he very expertly took all the purports of the great masters and he wrote the text and the purports woven into one book. So here's what we're going to do today. We're going to read the introduction of this book, and guess who wrote the introduction? Do you know? Hot seat for you, my friend. George Harrison. George Harrison wrote the introduction. And George Harrison is a funny story about George Harrison, because when Srila Prabhupada finally wrote this book, they needed, I think, like 10 or 20,000 pounds to print it. And so Prabhupada said, I want you to ask George Harrison for a donation. And he asked Shama Sundar that. So if you don't know who Shama Sundar was, he just had 2 books released about his life, sort of biographies about himself and how he got into bhakti. They are such great reads. They're called Chasing Rhinos with the Swami. And I think it's because Prabhupada used to say, go for the rhino, meaning go do the craziest thing you could think of to spread the holy name. Like the whatever, huh? Like you are. Oh, thank you. Damodar says, like I am. I'm just a rhino. So anyway, can you put that in a mug or something? Can you put this in a mug, please? I want to. Yeah. Thank you for me. So anyway, Shama Sundar told me that he told Prabhupada, oh, Prabhupada, I'm friends with George, but I'm friends with him because I never ask him for anything. I'm just his friend. And so if you're friends with a celebrity, you don't want to like beg them for things. It's not cool. So he said, I don't want to. And Prabhupada said, I really want you to do it. And so he just felt really horrible. So he said to George, I really feel awkward about asking this, but we're going to need whatever it was, 10 or 20,000 pounds to print the Krishna book. Prabhupada asked me to ask you for a donation. And there was complete silence. He didn't answer. And then all of a sudden, something like lightning struck, or there was a blackout, or some type of big thunder, and they both looked at each other. And George said, okay, I think that's going to be a yes, I will. And so he donated, and he also, George Harrison was a pretty amazing devotee. He not only paid for the publication of the original Krishna book, he later on went to buy Prabhupada a giant mansion to use as a temple for all the devotees that's still right outside of England. Not only that, he recorded a hit record for the early devotees, which went on to, Kastuba was saying something very kind the other day to me, like, oh, you got on Joe Rogan, that's so big. But these guys were on top of the pops. That's like an English television show for like hit bands. They were so many people saw that. Then they toured all over England with this band, playing all these songs from this hit record that George produced for the devotees. And anyway, can you guys hear me okay? Everything good? Give me a thumbs up. Okay, thank you. Yeah, Joshua Green sang on that record, Mother Yamuna, famous devotees. So I'm going to read.
Raghu, we just need to make sure everyone's mics are muted as usual.
Okay, yeah, make sure you guys mute your mics. I can't remember how I mute their mics now. Manage. Okay, I'm going to try this. Manage. As you can tell, mute all. There you go. Continue. There you go. Okay, you're all muted. Sorry about that. I'm here live at the Bava Wellness, what do you call this place? Bava Wellness Emporium, yoga studio, herbal, Ayurvedic clinic. It's quite wonderful. Apothecary. Okay. This is from the words of George. Everybody is looking for Krishna. Some don't realize that they are, but they are. Krishna is God, the source of all that exists, the cause of all causes, the cause of all that is, was, or ever will be. And God is unlimited. He has many names. Allah, Buddha, Jehovah, Rama, all are Krishna, all are one. God is not abstract. He has both impersonal and the personal aspects to his personality, which is supreme, eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge. As a single drop of water has the same qualities as an ocean of water, so our consciousness has the qualities of God's consciousness. But through our identification and attachment with the material energy, my physical body, my sense pleasures, my material possessions, my ego, etc., our true transcendental consciousness has been polluted. And like a dirty mirror, it is unable to reflect a pure image. With many lives, our association with the temporary has grown. This impermanent body, a bag of bones and flesh, is mistaken for our truth self. And we have accepted this temporary condition to be final. Though all the sages, great saints, have remained a living proof. You're not supposed to do what I just did. That this non-temporary permanent state of God consciousness, I'm sorry, the sages, let me read that again. Sorry, I got lost in the page turn. Though all the great saints and sages have remained as living proof that this non-temporary permanent state of God consciousness can be revived in all living souls. Each soul is potentially divine. By the way, this is what I really love about this bhakti process, is not that there is this divine being and you are some plebeian little piece of speck of dirt, but you have the ability to rise, to grow, to evolve until you are fully God conscious. We're already parts and parcels of divinity. We're already pure beings. We have just been covered. So the concept of like there's a Christ-like being, you'll never be like that person, is not what they teach in bhakti. Bhakti means there are liberated souls, and you too can be liberated. And there's activities that you can do in this world that will liberate you. And then there's activities you can do that will keep you in bondage. And I think it's really digestible truth. That's a very digestible truth for me. I know there are things that I do that keep me farther away from God. There's things that I can do that bring me closer, make me feel connected. I know when I do something, when I say something, that is off track. I know when I do something, when I say something, when I eat something, in the consciousness of how I eat, when I feel, Raghu, you are off track or you are on track. So it's not just like we are nobodies who just have to sit here and pray for forgiveness because we're so sinful. We are actually pure spiritual beings who've just lost their way. And the practice of bhakti gives us simple tools to uncover what's already there. It's almost like we're diamonds in the rough, right? What do you think about that? Diamonds in the rough. I have one guy here on Live, Damodar Swaroop. Okay, I'm going to continue on with this introduction. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, steady in the self, being freed from material contamination, the yogi achieves the higher perfectional stage of happiness in touch with the supreme consciousness. Yoga, a scientific method for self-realization, is the process by which we purify our consciousness, stop further pollution, and arrive at the stage of perfection, full knowledge, full bliss. So if we're really doing yoga right, the pollution's going to stop. If I'm doing yoga, but continually engage in polluting activities, what good is that? Big deal. So I stretch for an hour and a half and breathe, and then I go back out and do a bunch of nonsense. How am I supposed to get better? I might get healthier. I might breathe a little better, but I'm not going to actually start to purify the consciousness. I think it's also safe to say too, I know when my consciousness is filled with greed or lust or envy or anger or rage. And I know that those things, for example, say something like lust. Lust is not quenched by fulfilling my lust, right? Greed is not quenched by fulfilling your greed. These things are like pouring oil on fire. I'll put out the fire by pouring oil on it. Wrong. You won't put out the fire that way. You'll increase the fire. So it appears, that's the Maya, that's the illusion. I will satisfy my lust by fulfilling my lust, right? So there are activities that are pollute the consciousness. If there's a God, I want to see him. This is George speaking. It's pointless to believe in something without proof, and Krishna consciousness and meditation are methods where you can actually obtain God perception. You can actually see God and hear him and play with him. It might sound crazy, but he is actually there, actually with you. There are many yogic paths: Raja, Jnana, Hatha, Kriya, Karma, Bhakti, which are all acclaimed by the masters of each method. Swami Bhaktivedanta is, as his title says, a bhakti yogi, following the path of devotion. By serving God through each thought, word, and deed, and by chanting his holy names, the devotees quickly develop God consciousness by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. One inevitably arrives in Krishna consciousness. The proof of the pudding is in the eating. I request you to take advantage of this book, Krishna, and enter into its understanding. I also request that you make an appointment to meet your God now. Isn't that a great way? Through the self-liberating process of yoga/union, and give peace a chance. All you need is love, parentheses, Krishna, Haribol, George Harrison, March 31st, 1970. It's a long time ago.
Before I was born.
Pretty good. Pretty inspiring. I'm going to jump in here. And so I was mentioning that the Krishna book is the reading of the 10th canto, but woven in with purports. Now, if you're a fan of the Krishna book, you'll also be a fan of the 10th canto. So I'm going to read from the 10th canto today. And it's on my phone. And we're going to read the story. I'm not going to tell you. You're going to tell me the story. So we start with this. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Jnana Tamarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya. Chakshurunmidam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So we still have the same narrator, right? Sukadeva Goswami. And Sukadeva Goswami said, my dear king, while Nanda Maharaj was on the way home, he considered what Vasudeva had said could not be false or useless. There must have been some danger or disturbance in Gokul. As Nanda Maharaj thought about the danger for his beautiful son Krishna, he was afraid, and he took shelter at the lotus feet of the Supreme Controller. Purport. Whenever there is danger, the pure devotee thinks of the protection and shelter of the Supreme Godhead. This is also advised in Bhagavad Gita. Anityam asukam lokam imam prapya bhajashvamam. In this material world, there is danger at every step. Therefore, a devotee has no other course than to take shelter of the Lord at every step. While Nanda Maharaj was returning to Gokul, the same fierce Putana, who Kamsa had previously engaged to kill babies, was wandering about in towns, cities, and villages doing her nefarious duty. So if you've never heard this story, hold on to your seat. You can't make this type of stuff up. My dear king, wherever people in any position perform their occupational duties, their dharma, um, uh, uh, by chanting and hearing, there cannot be any danger from bad elements. You tell your kids whenever they're scared, all they have to do is chant and hear. They just have to do Hare Krishna, having a bad dream, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Whenever there is some bhakti being executed, it gets rid of all inauspicious things. There cannot be any danger from bad elements. Therefore, there was no need for anxiety about Gokul while the Supreme Personality of Godhead was personally present. Once upon a time, a Rakshashi Putana. So Rakshashi is like some type of like a demoness. It's actually a species, a Rakshasha, and a female one is called a Rakshashi. Once upon a time, the Putana, the Rakshashi, who could move according to her desire, so she was a mystical being, and was wandering in outer space, converted herself by mystic potency into a very beautiful woman, and thus entered Gokul. So Gokul is where childhood Krishna grew up. It's in Vrindavan. She had this thing, this mystic city called Kama Rupa. Sometimes you hear like these conspiracy people talk about this, like shapeshifters. Ever hear that? Mm-hmm. They talk about people who could shift their forms. So this is, according to the yogis, this is one of the sub-cities. There's 8 major mystical perfections, and then there's sub-cities, and one is called Kama Rupa. The desire that you have, the forms that you have, you can shift it by your desires. So she could change her form. She converted herself. So she was quite grotesque. She converted herself to a very beautiful woman and thus entered Gokul, the abode of Nanda Maharaj. So if you don't know, Nanda Maharaj is Krishna's father. What did she look like at this point? Let me tell you. Her hips were full. Her breasts were large and firm. That's what it says. Seeming to overburden her slim waist, and she was dressed very nicely. Her hair, adorned with a garland of malika flowers, was scattered about her beautiful face. Her earrings were brilliant, and she smiled very attractively, glancing upon everyone. Her beauty drew the attention of all the inhabitants of Braj, especially the men. So here's this. Here, you got to understand what we're dealing with. You're dealing with a bunch of farmers sitting in this. I mean, even where I live with a bunch of farmers. Everyone. You go to the farm store where the kids go to school. It's like all the mothers come in there looking like they, got big muck boots up to their knees. Everybody's hair is done. No one looks primped. I used to live in LA. In Los Angeles, before you go out the door, you look like you're about to, audition for a movie. Up. If you live in the farms, lands, you know what I'm talking about. So here's this very, decorated, beautiful, sexy woman coming into this like little farm village, and everyone's like, "What?" We're here in Arizona right now. Arizona, everyone's got like a fancy car. Everyone's got like some hot rod. Like if you drove any of these cars to upstate New York, be like, "What the?" We'd be like, "What's your problem, man? What are you trying to be? Who are you trying to be?" We're like, "I don't know. It's a cool car." People are into cool cars here. So here in Gokul and Vrindavan, it's like a small little village. No one is flashy, right? So here she comes in. Everybody's sort of looking at her like, who's this woman? When the cowherd women saw her, they thought that she was like a beautiful goddess, like a goddess of fortune, holding a lotus flower in her hand. She had come, she appeared like the goddess of fortune. I'm going to leave it at that. There. While searching for small children, Putana, whose business was actually to kill them, entered the house of Nanda Maharaj unobstructed, having been sent by the superior potency of the Lord. Without asking anyone's permission, entered the house, Nanda Maharaj's room, where the child was sleeping in bed. His unlimited power covered, like a powerful fire covered by ashes. She can understand that this child was not ordinary, but was meant to kill all the demons. So she instinctually knew this is not some normal baby. Lord Sri Krishna, the all-pervading supersoul lying on the bed, understood that Putana, a witch who was expert at killing small children, had come to kill him. Therefore, as if afraid of her, Krishna closed his eyes. So Krishna just went like this. Ah. Therefore, as if afraid, thus Putana, took upon her lap him who was to be her own annihilation, just as an unintelligent person places a sleeping snake on his lap, thinking the snake to be a rope. Putana, the Rakshashi's heart was fierce and cruel, but she looked very affectionate, like a mother. Thus she resembled a sharp sword in a soft sheath. Good analogy. She looked very beautiful, but she was actually very cruel. So she's like a beautiful sheath housing a very sharp sword. Although seeing her within the room, Yashoda and Rohini, overwhelmed by her beauty, did not stop her, but remained silent because she treated the child like a mother. Isn't it true that if the person is beautiful, they can just get away with murder sometimes? They could just get away with stuff.
You just want to give them stuff.
Yeah, here, what do you want? Take whatever you want. God. So anyway, she did that. They were like, yeah, come on in. Yeah, pick up my baby, no problem. You're beautiful. What could you possibly do? You're beautiful. You must be doing something right. Unfair. We live in a society based just on bodies and appearance. On that very spot, the fiercely dangerous Rakshasi took Krishna on her lap and pushed her breast into his mouth. The nipple of her breast was smeared with a dangerous, immediately effective poison. But the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, becoming very angry at her, took a hold of her breast, squeezed it very hard with both hands, and sucked out both the poison and her life. So first of all, what a crazy story. She took her breast and put poison on her breast and then put the baby to her breast, and Krishna just sucked and pulled and finally had to let go of the baby. She sort of just freaked out and just dropped the child. And then he sucked the prana right out of her body. Lord Krishna was very angry at Putana for his own sake. Rather, he was angry because the Rakshasa had killed so many small children in Brajabhumi. Therefore, he decided that she should be punished by having to forfeit her life. Unbearably pressed in every vital point, the demon Putana began to cry, "Please leave me, child, please leave me." So she's just like, if you can imagine a child just holding on by his mouth to the breast of Putana and her trying to swing this baby off her body. And Krishna just would not let go, just kept continually sucking. "Suck my breast no longer," she said, perspiring, her eyes wide open, and her arms and legs flailing. She cried very loudly and again and again. Now, I wish there was no yoga class in the other room because I could really scream and act this one out. But I'm trying to be a little bit subdued and gentle. As Putana screamed loudly and forcibly, the earth with its mountains and outer space with the planets trembled. The lower planets in all directions vibrated, and people fell down, fearing that the thunderbolts were falling upon them. In this way, the demon Putana, very much aggrieved because her breast was being attacked by Krishna, lost her life. O King Parikshit, opening her small mouth wide and spreading her arms, legs, and hair, fell down into the pasturing ground in her original form as a Rakshashi, just as Ritasura had fallen when killed by the thunderbolt of Indra. I like sometimes they use an analogy from an ancient story. So the story of Ritasura getting killed by Indra is another story, but it's from ancient times. Like that's what these books are called, the Puranas. Puranas mean very, very ancient histories of the universe. Isn't that interesting? And they're referring to it, just like they talk about, oh yeah, and Trump got impeached this in the same way. They were attempting to impeach Trump the same way we tried to impeach Nixon. So I'm referring to Nixon in reference to today. So in the same way, they're referring to something that happened millennia and millennia, many yugas previously. And you're supposed to already know these things as reading these. O King, when the gigantic body of Putana fell to the ground, it smashed all the trees within a limit of 12 miles. Appearing in a gigantic body, she was certainly quite extraordinary to look at.
The village, they have all the pastimes and those.
This Rakshashi's mouth was full of teeth, each resembling a front of a plow. Her by the way, a plow is what we would consider, like when you do that yoga pose, what's a plow pose? Halasana. A plow is sort of like what we would call a pick, like a pickaxe. Mm-hmm. That's what a plow is. Yeah, like you plow into the ground. So her teeth resembled plows. Her nostrils were deep like mountain caves. Her breasts resembled big slabs of stone fallen from a hill. Her scattered hair was the color of copper. The sockets of her eyes appeared like deep blind wells. Her fearful thighs resembled the banks of a river. Her arms and legs and feet seemed like big bridges, and her abdomen appeared like a dried up lake. The hearts, ears, and heads of the cowherd men and women were already shocked by the Rakshashi's screaming, and when they saw this fierce wonder of her body, they were even more frightened. It's quite frightening. Without fear, the child Krishna was playing on the upper portion of Putana Rakshashi's breast, and when the gopis saw the child's wonderful activities, they immediately came forward with great jubilation and picked him up. So here, because he sucked her breast, she laid on the ground, and Krishna is laying on top of this now gross form. And Krishna is laying there. So all the other cowherd ladies say, what's going on? Here the Supreme Personality, here's a purport. Here Krishna, although the Rakshashi Putana could increase or decrease her bodily size by her mystic abilities, and thus gain proportionate power, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is equally powerful in any transcendental form. Krishna is the real personality of Godhead because whether as a child or as a grown-up young man, he is the same person. He does not need to become powerful by meditation or any other external endeavor. Therefore, when the greatly powerful Putana expanded her body, Krishna remained the same small child and fearlessly played on the upper portion of her breast. Thereafter, Mother Yashoda and Mother Rohini, along with other elderly gopis, waved about the switch of a cow. Waved about the switch of a cow? What does that mean? To give full protection for the child Sri Krishna. Rohini is Balaram's mother. So Krishna and Balaram were they had two wives. Vasudeva had two wives, Rohini and Yashoda. And so Balaram was the child of Rohini, and Krishna was the child of Yashoda. Thereafter, Mother Yashoda and Rohini, along with the elderly gopis, waved about the switch of a cow to give full protection to the child of Sri Krishna. The child was thoroughly washed with cow urine. And what?
Whoa.
Yep. And then smeared with the dust raised by the movements of cows. We're going to talk about that in a second. Then different names of the Lord were applied with cow dung on the 12 different parts of the body, beginning with the forehead, as done in applying tilak. In this way, the child was given protection. They applied cow dung tilak in names of Vishnu. So the first thing I want to just say is, the stories of Krishna, when I first heard them, I thought, these are a little crazy. I like philosophy. I like you're not the body. I like mantra meditation holds the mind. But Krishna killing a giant witch, I find this too fantastic to like sucking the life of a witch. But once you get to this point, like, what do I know anyway? It opens like sort of, it knocks the ceiling off of your learning. My learning is actually learning in a box. You know, if you tell me that there is, you know, a magical leopard that lives in the forest and disappears and then reappears, my logical mind that usually thinks in a box is like, that can't be true. But once you start to realize, like, I don't know everything. I can't perceive everything. There's so many things I've never perceived. There's things that are beyond my perception. There's things that could be happening in this room that I can't perceive. How do I know that? Well, there's sounds in the room that I can't hear. But if you have a dog, you know, the dog can hear sounds that are just like, that are out of our range of hearing. There's smells that I can't smell that a dog could smell. So different species have these different types of senses that we don't have. And we have certain senses that they don't have. The next logical question is, what senses am I missing that keeps me from understanding objective reality? What sense am I missing that is keeping me from understanding objective reality? And the fact is, I live in a box. I don't know. I haven't been off this planet. I haven't seen the depths of the ocean. Some people have never even traveled off the continent. So there's so many things, like if it wasn't for media or travel, and you just lived in your small town in whatever, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and like your relatives have for your entire life, to understand what an alligator is, it's like unbelievable. You've never seen anything like it in Scranton or all your trips to, Philadelphia, the big city, or anywhere else you might go in the days previous when there was not that much, when there's no mass transit or people went by horses or walked. So to understand something like an alligator or a whale or a zebra, it's almost like those things are almost like fantastic, like a unicorn. But they do exist. Whales exist, zebras exist, lizards exist, parakeets exist, but you're not going to find them in Pennsylvania. So when you start accepting, like, I live in a box, and when I approach the fantastic, I should understand my senses are limited. I don't know. I live in a box. And a simple answer is, it could be. I don't know. Can the Supreme Being, the Lord of all lords, the master of the universe, be a tiny little cowherd boy? I don't know. Could. I'm not saying he definitely is. He could be. Once you start to get, that's how you learn to study the Vedas. You have to enter it by saying, could be. Once you say could be, it blows the ceiling off your learning and your education. Once you think, I know, you should understand you're limiting yourself because you know very little. And there's certain things that you can't know. There's certain things we can't know with our own intelligence because we have the intelligence of a frog. We have intelligence of a cockroach. The cockroach does not know that there's a yoga class going on in the other room. Even though there's a yoga class going on right next door, the cockroach can't know it. Why? It's beyond the understanding of the cockroach. So we are like those cockroaches with very limited understanding of the way the universe works. So this is one way to at least accept that these Krishna lilas are true, are real. Can I say they're definitely real? Beyond my conception. I don't know. Could they be real? for sure. I think that's a healthy way to enter it. But I find that this faith is in bhakti is not asking me to accept it in a blind way. As George Harrison was saying, the great sages that have gone ahead of us, they were realized beings who have deep, deep connection, deep wisdom, and they go through these. It's just like if I've never crossed America, I want to follow the way. I want to talk to Lewis and Clark. They went. I want to find how they got there. I want to find what trails to take, where there's dangerous rivers, where there's dangerous, currents, where there's dangerous animals, what the smoothest, how can I avoid, deserts or great mountains. You want to find people who've walked the path ahead of you. That's why this advancing in bhakti thing is not done on a solo journey. We do it in a community, online. That's how we're doing it. It's useful to have people who've come up the same, because as different as we are, we're the same in so many ways. And we're going to come up against the same things. What are the same things we come in contact with? Our attachments, our addictions, our ego. These are as different as we are. Some of us are born in very wealthy families. Some of us are born very broke. Some of us are born with sort of like very cool parents, very thoughtful parents. Some are born with our parents were drug addicts and alcoholics. So it's one of these things, as different as we are, we're from different countries, we're at different ages. As different as we are, those same things are there for everybody. We're attached to stuff, right? We're attached to our body as ourself. We're in that type of illusion. We're attached to, what did I just say? Our hearts get broken. We try to fill our God hole with things. We want desperately to be loved, right? And so these things are very common. We can find people who have dealt with these, that have walked this path ahead of us. And that's what helps us find the way. Okay, I just want to finish this up now. Oh, by the way, I also wanted to mention cow urine has now officially been proved to be therapeutic. It's something that they speak about in the Vedas. It's an antiseptic. It's so funny. I used to live on a farm, and I always see Indians would come and they'd collect the cow urine. And even though I was into bhakti, I was like, this is so nuts. But it's one of these things. Cow urine is therapeutic externally as a disinfectant and also in Ayurvedic medicine. What do you think about that, Damodar?
I've heard people go to Raghunath village for that cow urine treatment.
Yep, it's like a therapy.
We don't practice that.
Some people hate it. Some people hate it. You don't practice that here at Baba Wellness. It's not big here in Tucson. And then the cow dung is also very powerful too. Matter of fact, more than milk, cow dung makes soil like 80% more fertile. The cow dung is like the greatest wealth. And the cow urine, when mixed with water, is organic, not fertilizer, but organic bug repellent.
Wow.
It's so crazy how we like spray toxic things on plants that gets put into the water table. It's like, how short-sighted are we? Okay, I'm going to go on because I want to get some Krishna lila in. The gopis first executed the process of akshman, drinking a sip of water from the right hand. They purified their bodies with the hands of the nyasa mantra and then applied the same mantra upon the body of the child. So they're doing some special ritual. Nyasa mantra includes akshman, or the first drinking of a sip of water, kept in the right hand. There are different Vishnu mantras to purify the body. The gopis, and in fact any householders, knew the process for being purified by chanting hymns. The gopis executed this process first to purify themselves and then to purify child Krishna. One executes the process of anga nyasa and kara nyasa simply by drinking a little sip of water and then chanting the mantra. The mantra is preceded with the first letter of the name, followed by anuswara, and the word nama or om namo, jas tavangri avyat. Mam mano manimas tava januni avyat, and so on. I have no idea what they're talking about. I've never done this. I've never heard this mantra. Anyway. By losing Indian culture, Indian householders have forgotten how to execute Anganyasa and are simply busy in sense gratification without any advanced knowledge of human civilization.
You should learn it.
Yeah, I gotta learn this stuff. Well, I will say, it's quite amazing that ever since the 60s, a lot of these ancient arts of India have been resurrected. Sometimes you hear about these cultures, there's languages, like Native American languages. They're almost practically extinct. What's the original? Gaelic? They're like extinct languages. Give them 100 years. If it's not for some random professor, these things will become extinct. India was heading in that direction because the whole world wanted to be westernized, including Indians. And of course, not every Indian, but the majority were pushing their kids, encouraging. Aditi, who's usually on our morning show, will admit, this is the nature. I want to send my kids to the West. I want them to study business or we want to move to Toronto. We want to move to New York. They become engineers and make good money and move our whole family out of India. It's these Westerners who are so fed up and sickened with sense gratification that they realize there is some deep wisdom in the East. And not only do we want to study it, it's being forgotten. We want to perfect it and we want to resurrect it. That's why I think there's a beautiful marriage between Westerners and Indians. I love India, but I feel like they're driven to be Western. And I love Americans, but they're so, or Westerners, but they're so into sense gratification. And when these two cultures come together, something very beautiful happens. Because Americans, as crazy as Americans are, we're like dead. We get really focused and really serious about stuff. Some swamis even came to America in the 60s and didn't teach vegetarianism because they thought, these are Americans. They're never going to take it seriously. We're not going to even tell them about stuff like that. But the fact is, Americans get really into things. And some of the best Ayurvedic doctors, Indian dancers, Indian kirtan players are from people grown up in the Western culture and have taken really serious these practices. Yoga teachers. Excuse me. Okay.
And our interests can help keep that alive.
Yeah, this whole thing is keeping it alive, and we have a great appreciation. It's not what's the word we're accused of? Appropriating. It's not misappropriating the culture. What's it? Cultural appropriate. It's not cultural appropriation. It's cultural appreciation. We want to blame the just because there's white-skinned people who 200 years ago, were cruel to Indians. That's not something I did personally. We have a great appreciation for the culture. And we want to resurrect these teachings. And they're not India's teachings. They're the teachings about God consciousness. No one culture owns God consciousness, and the very teachings themselves are inclusive. They're not exclusive. They're not just for the Indians. It's an inclusive. The Bhagavad Gita is an inclusive book. It says in the book itself, you're not a body, meaning you're not Indian, you're not a Hindu, you're not a Christian, you're not a Muslim. Those are all designations. You can change them all at any point. You are a pure spirit soul.
Give up all varieties.
Give up all varieties of dharmas and just surrender. There's one truth. So now I'm going to wrap this up here. So then Krishna, they're doing these prayers. Is it worth reading the prayer? It's really pretty. I'm not going to do it. It's basically going through all the different Akshman prayers. May Rishikesh protect your senses, and may Narayan, your life air. So all the elderly gopis who are totally freaking out are saying all these prayers over Krishna so to protect Krishna. May Lord Prishnigarman protect your intelligence. May the personality of Godhead protect your soul. While you are playing, may Govinda protect you. And while you are sleeping, may Madhava protect you. May the Lord of Vaikuntha protect you while you are walking. And may Lord Narayan, the husband of the goddess of fortune, protect you while you are sitting. Similarly, May Yajna-Buk, the fearful enemy of all the evil planets, always protect you while you enjoy this life. The evil witches known as Dakinis, Yatudanis, and Kusamandas are the greatest enemies of children, and evil spirits like Bhutas, Pretas, Pishatas, Yakshas, Rakshasas, Vinyakas, as well as witches like Kotara, Revati. There's a lot of witches out there. So there are witches. There are real witches out there. There are real witches out there. There are actually different species of beings. Are always ready to give trouble to the body, the life air, and the senses, causing loss of memory, madness, and bad dreams. It's interesting. Vedic psychology is called Bhuta Vidya, or the study of spirits. So sometimes there's like a manifestation of, it manifests in this lifetime as, well, there's a chemical imbalance in this person. And because of that, they are very depressed, or they're very ridden with anxiety, or they're have incredible mood swings. The yogis would say, everything is a being. It might manifest as a chemical imbalance, but there's forces or energies that are affecting us. Sometimes there are pitra bhutas, like ancestral spirits affecting us that happened in our lifetimes. And traditionally, there's been people who notice these things, like priests, and try to correct. This is what we have the concept in the Christian church called an exorcist, or an exorcism. So this was believed, not just in India, this is believed that there are spirits that screw with you. And they might manifest in Western medicine as, well, there's a chemical imbalance. It's no big deal. You can take this drug, and this will help with the chemical imbalance. But the yogis said, and sometimes we even say there's people who are suffering from sickness, but there's nothing the doctors can do. But in the Vedas, they say, no. They're actually beings, but you need people. And there's these type of mystic seers that can see what is up with a person. Sometimes just by feeling a pulse, sometimes by looking in their eyes, sometimes by doing their astrological chart. All this stuff is real.
You're taking medications.
The interesting thing, the medication isn't giving an exorcism. Yeah. It might even be making a person more tamasic, because tamas attracts subtle entities. Just bringing these things. I just wanted to read some Christian stories. It always ends up with ghosts. Okay, let me see if I'm done here. We got about 5 more minutes. Well, anyway, like the most experienced evil stars, like the most experienced evil stars, they all create disturbances, especially for children. Did you hear that? Yeah. They cause problems for children, but one can vanquish them simply by uttering Lord Vishnu's name. For when Lord Vishnu's name resounds, all of them become afraid and go away. There you go. You're having bad dreams. You just go, Vishnu, 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 Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Those mantras are so powerful. It vanquishes all. That's why if you're moving into a house or an apartment, God knows who lived in that house. Oh, you're moving tomorrow? Oh yeah, you got to chant in that house. It's more than just burning some sage, man. You got to take that incense, you got to offer it to the feet of Lord Krishna, and then around the whole body of Lord Krishna, and then let that incense burn in that house. And then you have to have kirtan in that house. And if there's any subtle entities, it scares them away. What do you think about that? You didn't think this was going to be ghost story night with Raghunath?
Business that we're gonna.
Yeah.
You're moving into a new house. We'll come over, do some kirtan for you.
All the gopis, headed by Mother Yasoda, were bound by material affection. After they thus chanted the mantras to protect the child, Mother Yasoda gave the child the nipple of her breast to suck, and then got him to lie down on his bed. So, we have about 4 minutes if anyone wants to take any questions. We read 10th Canto today. We're going to read Krishna book today, and there's a lot of other great sources for pastimes that I will read. So we're going to keep this sweet baby Krishna going. And sometimes we're even going to dive into the older pastimes of Krishna. There's 3 main times he has these pastimes. One as his childhood pastimes in Vrindavan, and then as he gets a little older and he goes to Mathura. Mathura is like the bigger city. And then when he's older and his disappearance pastimes, when he's a prince, those are his Dwarka pastimes. So we'll share all different ones, and they're all very sweet. Sean Murphy says, so when I get my house, y'all coming over for some kirtan and vegan gulab jamuns? Yes, we are, Sean Murphy. Does anybody else have any questions you'd like to ask? I need a good Spotify song to end this thing. We might have to do it old school style.
A sweet one from the guy you love so much that we were playing in here. Oh.
I got it. We have 2. If you go to, I don't know how to find things on Spotify, but we just got 2 Wisdom of the Sages playlists for everybody. So if you'd like to check them out, they're on, I guess if you search Raghunath, Daniel. This is Boy George doing Bow Down Mister. If anyone knows or not, Boy George became a devotee. And he wrote this song that became a hit song. Oh, if you go to playlists and search under Wisdom of the Sages, there it is. Did I lose it? Sorry. Anyway, I want to thank everybody for joining us. I think I'm less than 50% exciting without Kastuba. I really know Kastuba. As Kastuba grounds me, it makes me crazier. And I think alone I'm quite boring, but I hope this was okay for everybody. Yes, this is your Krishna bedtime story. We'll keep this going. How many people do we have today? Not bad, 32 for our first Krishna reading. Hey, how are you? We're online, welcome. Oh, it's okay. Come on. Anyway, thanks for everybody joining late. And we will see you tomorrow for the show. This is such a good song. Hare, 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 bow down. You know the song? Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, bow down, Mister. We say Radhe Sham. We made a whole rock and roll playlist. Turn it down a little bit. Thanks, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow morning. The last day in Tucson. Bye-bye.